Our first reading of today is taken from the book of Jeremiah, chapter 17, verses 5 to 10. And in these verses, Jeremiah portrays before us two kinds of individuals. The one kind of individual, he says, is a person who puts his or her trust merely in externals, in worldly things, in riches, in power, and in wealth. Very clearly, the consequence of putting one's trust in the externals like riches and wealth will lead to destruction, not merely of the riches which will rust and rot, but also of the person, him or herself. On the other hand, he puts before us a person who places his or her trust completely and totally in God. And the person who places his or her trust in God is a person who will receive God's favor, because God's favor is eternal. God's riches, the riches of love, are eternal and can never rust or rot away. And so Jeremiah is exhorting us not to be like those who place their trust in riches and the externals, but to place our trust and confidence solely and wholly in God. In the gospel text of today, which is taken from the Gospel of Luke chapter 16, verses 19 to 31, Jesus tells a parable in which we see the consequences of placing our trust in riches and wealth, and the consequence of placing our trust in God. He speaks about the rich man and Lazarus. There is only one parable which Jesus told in which a character is named. It is this parable, and the meaning of the name Lazarus, the name given to the poor man, is God helps. So Lazarus really receives God's help in the parable. There is a rich man who places his trust in riches, and that is seen when he is totally oblivious to the presence of Lazarus, who sits there right in front of him. The rich man is so caught up in his wealth. The rich man is so caught up in himself. The rich man is so caught up in his riches that he lets his riches become God. He lets his riches possess him. He lets his riches have him. Because the riches have become an end in themselves. He cannot see beyond his nose. He cannot look at the needs of others. His needs are all that matter to him. His needs are all that must be satisfied. There is a poor man, Lazarus, who even wants to eat the scraps that fall from the rich man's table. Lazarus has put his trust in the Lord. The story continues by telling us that the rich man dies, and after his death, because he lived a selfish life, because he lived a self-centered life, he is going away to Hades, to the eternal fire. Lazarus, the poor man who placed his trust in God, is taken by the angels and now sits in the bosom of Abraham. The rich man, while in Hades, while suffering now because his riches have rotted away, his gold has become rust, looks into heaven and sees Abraham and Lazarus, and once again now we realize that he actually knew who Lazarus was. He preferred not to know, because now he knows the name of Lazarus. And even now, he wants Lazarus to act as his servant. He tells Abraham, let Lazarus dip the tip of his finger in water and cool my tongue. Even in Hades, Even in the eternal fire, he has not learned to be selfless. He is still selfish and thinks only of his own needs and continues to regard Lazarus as his messenger boy and as his servant. Of course, this cannot be done, and Abraham tells him that in no uncertain terms. The person responds, the rich man responds by asking Abraham now. An iota of selflessness creeps into him when he says that he wants Lazarus to go and warn his brothers who are still alive and who still live as if their riches are God, who still live as if their riches are an end in themselves, to warn them not to do what he did. Abraham responds by saying that they have been given instructions, that the prophets have spoken, that the word of God has been revealed to them. He continues by saying, no, Father Abraham, but if someone should go back from the dead, and there is a reference here to the Lord's resurrection, his brothers will believe. Abraham responds by saying, for those who believe, no proof is necessary. For those who do not believe, no proof is sufficient. Are you one who needs proof to believe? Or has all the proof that you need already been given in Jesus?